Argentina in the past few minutes have beaten France on penalties in Qatar to win the World Cup final. And what a final it was. Argentina had been leading 2-0 for much of it following a penalty from Lionel Messi. Then Angel Di Maria scored to make it 2-0. It had been that scoreline for some time before Kylian Mbappe scored a penalty for France in the 80th minute. He netted again in the 81st. And these are the scenes there. This is Messi's strike there. Let us have a look at Lloris. Just couldn't get it, could he, there. We have live shots tonight from Buenos Aires where fans are celebrating in their droves, aren't they? Just look at them. Huge celebrations. 800 or 88,666 fans watched one of the most dramatic finals of the competition, and it was really evenly matched, wasn't it? Right to the end, right to those penalties. Kylian Mbappe, I was saying, got 3 goals for France in the 80th, 81st minute, and then deep into extra time to give him a hat-trick, and that was the first time that somebody has scored a hat-trick since Geoff Hurst for England back in 1966. This was really billed as the two the two stars of both Argentina and France, Messi and Mbappe, and boy, how they performed. But it wasn't to be for France after losing 4-2 on penalties. Argentina were expecting, they thought they'd win their first trophy in 1986, and they did indeed. And don't the crowds there in the centre of the Argentinian capital love it. Plenty of tension for a while when France had equalised, and it went to extra time. And then high drama in that penalty shootout, and it came down to Argentina winning 4-2 on spot kicks. Let's get the thoughts, shall we, of Luke Entwistle, editor and French football expert at Get French Football News. I have to say, huge scenes of celebration in Buenos Aires there, but it wasn't just to be for France.
Good evening. No, it wasn't to be. That was the definition, I'd say, of an emotional roller coaster of a game. It switched back and forth so many times. The first half was certainly the worst we've seen France in the first half, the whole tournament. And then in the second half, even until the 80th minute, they didn't really look in the game. They get back in the game through a Nicolas Otamendi error, and then Ronaldo Muani gets on the end of a pass, and then obviously Mbappe does the rest. Mbappe again straight after, and then even into extra time, it was backwards and forwards. But ultimately, France don't defend the title, and Brazil are still the last side to win consecutive World Cups.
When it came to the 79th minute, did you think it was all over then?
I think so. It looked as though France didn't have the answers to what Argentina were posing them. For the first half, there was no real cohesion or coherence in what France were trying to do. And that really spilt over into the second half as well. It was only those substitutions, and once they began to take hold, that we saw France get any kind of grip on the game. And then Kylian Mbappe, being the player that he is, he only needs a bit of a side-shot goal and he can put it away. So I'd say in the 79th minute, French fans were probably heading to the exits. Not that there were too many of them in Qatar. There's a massive Argentina fun. I think something like 55,000 Argentina fans were packed in. Only 6,000 France fans. Apparently there were more Argentina flags than there were fans for supporting Les Bleus in this game. But it didn't look like a likely route back into the game. But Mbappe just has that clutch mentality in the key moments. And then obviously he did it again in extra time. The game looked finished again. They came back from the death again, and then they just couldn't quite get over the line in the penalty shootouts, which, as you know, it's a 50-50 split.
Yeah, but how well France performed. I suppose they livened up. They took time, didn't they? But look at Mbappe, a hat-trick there, equalling the feat of Geoff Hurst. And I mean, this was always going to be billed as Messi versus Mbappe, wasn't it? And Mbappe delivered.
Yeah, I mean, this just felt like a game of one-upmanship of the two greatest players on the planet currently, and it's the legacy player. It's Lionel Messi in his final World Cup game who finally wins that trophy that's eluded him his whole career, and that's the clean sweep now. Obviously, the first half belonged to Lionel Messi, and then you just thought that Mbappe it felt like a changing of the guard, and then it changes again when Messi gets his second, and then Mbappe gets his hat trick. As you say, the first player since 1966 to do so. He's also now the top scorer in World Cup final history, which is incredible for a 23-year-old player. He's already competing in his second World Cup final, but it wasn't to be his second World Cup. If he had won it, he would have been only one off Pele, and he would have been kind of full in emulating the great Pele's footsteps if he had have won that. But it wasn't to be for Mbappe today, and the spoils go to Messi, who, in his final game, as we say, is he's now won everything. So the day belongs to him.
Lots more to come from Mbappe. How will French fans be feeling tonight? It's obviously just happened, so pretty raw. But can they be pleased? How well? I mean, this game was one of the most exciting finals in World Cup history, wasn't it?
Certainly. I mean, this was a classic, if not one of the. If it's not the greatest World Cup final, it's certainly up there with the greats. It's a veritable classic. But I think that the expectations for France gradually rose throughout the tournament. So I think expectations, despite the fact they were defending champions, felt quite low going into the tournament. That's largely due to huge injuries to Karim Benzema. There's Pogba. There's no Paul Pogba. There's no N'Golo Kante. There's no Presnel Kimpembe. There were so many players missing from this side that was so pivotal to the 2018 victory. So I think the expectations were low, and as they gradually rose, I think obviously the deflation that you'll feel from a defeat and a defeat on penalties in the World Cup final it's going to be very bitter. But I think that compared to what they'd set themselves at the start of the campaign, I think they'd be very happy to have got this far in the tournament. But when you get so close to getting your hands on the trophy for the second time in 4 years, there's going to be a massive deflation.
Can I ask where your loyalties lie, finally? A French supporter? I mean, you are a Brit.
I was supporting England, France, but I've been rooting for France since. So it's disappointing to see them fall at the final hurdle, but that's how it is.
All right, thank you, Luke, for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
We can bring in straight away our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, who is in Doha. Goodness, words fail me, actually. You know, Argentina just did it on penalties, but how exciting it was from the 80th minute onwards.
What an epic final this was. 12-year Qatar waited to deliver this World Cup, and it went through to the distance, right the way through to penalties. We had both Mbappe and Messi scoring their first spot kicks, but ultimately those missed penalties from France proved so costly, with Argentina prevailing 4-2 on penalties. And just what a game it was. France were completely out of it, it seemed, when we had Messi and Di Maria scoring those goals, which had put them into the 2-0 ascendancy. Then Mbappe turned it around with 10 minutes to go, scoring the penalty, then equalising to send the game into extra time, only after Lionel Messi had been denied a chance to win it deep the end of regular time when Hugo Lloris made a fingertip stave. And then in extra time, Messi thought he'd won it. A close-range tap-in, but then still Mbappe with a hat-trick, the first hat-trick scored by a man in a World Cup final since 1966, and Jeff Hurst forced the game into a penalty shootout, but it proved a shootout beyond the French. They could not defend their world title. They could not match Brazil 60 years ago in becoming back-to-back men's champions, and it means Argentina have their first World Cup since 1986. Lionel Messi finally has the one big prize that eluded him throughout a glittering career, having lost the 2014 final. Now in what he said will be his final ever World Cup match, Lionel Messi is a world champion.
As finals go, you've seen one or two, haven't you, Rob? How does this rank?
Oh, it truly goes down as one of the greats. The drama, the tension, the excitement. It looked like France were completely out of it. They turned it around. We thought perhaps the virus that had been sweeping through their squad might be something that had drained them energy, that given them no chance. They hadn't even had a shot on target by the time Mbappe scored that penalty with about 10 minutes to go, and they found a new lease of life, which really created this thrilling conclusion, sending it into extra time. And then that extra time drama, and penalties are such a cruel way it's often seen to settle a match, particularly to settle a final. We know as England fans how painful penalties can be, and for France they really experience the agony of them with those decisive kicks missed, allowing Argentina to prevail. But what a moment for Argentina when they've waited since the era of Diego Maradona in 1986 to try to win the World Cup for a third time. But here they are at the top of world football again. France just missing out when perhaps this was the World Cup for them, but they'd been denied by injuries leading into this tournament. Karim Benzema was ruled out during the tournament, and N'Golo Kante couldn't even travel here. So perhaps to get this far through to the final surprised so many. But for Argentina and for Lionel Messi, Messi was already confirmed as one of the greats of all time. This will just confirm that status. Messi completing the set of major trophies sets him apart now alongside the likes of Diego Maradona and Pele, and perhaps as we think about his great rival in the current game, Cristiano Ronaldo, perhaps we've seen the last of him ever at a World Cup given his performance, and he'll never win a World Cup, but Lionel Messi, we know now, will be a world champion in his career.
Yeah, and just very, very briefly, Rob, it has been a tournament, hasn't it, of upsets and surprises.
Yeah, let's remember how this tournament began for Argentina. One of the biggest shocks potentially in World Cup history. They were beaten by Saudi Arabia, and we thought perhaps the end of the journey for Argentina in this World Cup might be in the group stage, but they've turned it around just like they did. They came back tonight against France as well. And for Argentina, just one of those upsets we've seen. The run of Morocco will live long in the memory here, beating Belgium, Spain and Portugal before being denied a trip to this final by France. And really the Moroccan success helping to reflect this World Cup, the first World Cup in the Arab region, and the fan base has really energised this tournament, giving it a real regional flavour. We are 12 years since that vote that awarded Qatar the World Cup, one of the most controversial decisions in football history, one that has deep ramifications, scandals, controversies and investigations running through the years, and potentially even nearly bringing FIFA to its demise. But this tournament will go down as delivering some shocks, some classic matches, an epic final, but still for many decades to come there'll be questions about whether this tournament should even have ever been in Qatar, the suffering of migrant workers to deliver the World Cup, the discrimination some fans faced here, LGBT fans who had things like rainbow flags taken off them. But for Qatar, they say it has been transformative. They have changed laws. They have adapted to the Western culture to welcome fans from all across the world to this World Cup. And it's the World Cup that took football to new frontiers, bringing football to the Middle East for the first time with a global event, as FIFA would say, making football truly global. But there will always be those questions about this tournament, the deaths, more than 400 migrant workers dying in the construction of the £200 billion project to deliver this World Cup and the transformation of Qatar. But on the pitch, they'll be celebrating the football success, and that is success for Argentina, finally being world champions again for the first time since 1986, and Lionel Messi finally getting a chance to pick up the World Cup.